Hello. Firstly, thank you for pressing on the link and taking the time out of your day to listen for no more than 5 minutes to me talk about historical anti-Semitism. This is the first of 3 audio recordings that I hope to put together, or that I have put together for my project for the Understanding Anti-Semitism in the UK course that I did over March with the Holocaust Educational Trust. I hope that it is informative for you all. To begin with, I want to point out the significance of the existence of anti-Jewish rhetoric and steps that were taken in England, in the UK, and how far back it goes. For example, in 1290, all Jews were expelled from England. It's not just this that's built up from the Nazi period. Anti-Semitism has been going on for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So, as I said, I hope to be able to lay out the significant anti-Semitism and how historical it was. And I would also like to touch upon some of the racial slurs which are still in existence today because of what has developed over time. Firstly, classical anti-Semitism. In the Greco-Roman world, Greeks and Romans would integrate their religion into other religions. And immediately Jews were not seen as fitting in and that they were out of place. Because of the Sabbath, they were labeled as lazy. From the Fourth Lateran Council, Jews could now not hold public office. The council also sought to regulate encounters between Jews and Muslims, and the council sought to restrict the movements of Jews during Holy Week. They also demanded that Jews wear distinguished dress. In the medieval society was very structured. Jews were placed outside of this structure, and many were not allowed to join certain professions. Jewish individuals, Jewish groups Jewish families moved to England in 1066, and they lived a successful life. They were involved with exchequer and money. And people didn't like this because Jewish individuals were now seen to be taking the money from other people as they were involved in money lending and exchequer. This idea that Jews were ugly began to develop. If Jews didn't accept God by Christian standards, then they were seen to be associating with the devil. Jews were pictured with horns and tails, showing this association, and even the Bishop of Canterbury spoke about Jewish people being devils. Obviously, all of that is incorrect, wrong, and hateful. In 1144, the blood libel took place in England. It's this idea that Jewish people needed the blood of Christian children for religious purposes. Again, total rubbish. And in Norwich, the death of an English boy was attributed to the Jewish community. The Jewish community were blamed for this death of this English boy. And as a result of all this, Jews were expelled from England in 1290. And because of this, there was further anti-Jewish rhetoric continued within the 13th century, the myth of the wandering Jew. This idea that because Jews had been expelled from parts of the world, they were now everywhere, causing havoc across Europe. And along with the plague, a further example of total nonsense, the poisoning of the wells. Because of the lack of scientific proof of how the plague developed, Jews were blamed for poisoning the wells. And as a result of this obviously very dangerous myth, Jews were burnt at stakes and gathered up in synagogues in their homes and burnt. This reminds us of the past 12 months of the anti-Jewish and anti-Semitism that has built up because of the current situation, the pandemic. Last year, Jews being blamed for the pandemic across the world, which is, of course, once again, nonsense and, of course, very dangerous. and discriminatory and hateful. And a final point I'd like to sort of move in from the classical anti-Semitism period, the feudal society, the medieval society, moving into now the 20th century. I'd like to just touch on the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, because, as I've said, I wanted to touch on how this is all impacted upon anti-Semitism today. And in 1903, a Russian newspaper produced the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It was this idea of a Jewish plot to control the world. The work was written to intentionally blame Jews for a variety of global ills. Henry Ford of Ford Motors, which I'm sure you're all well aware of, published a series of articles based in part on the protocols in his own hometown newspaper. In the 1920s, 500,000 copies of this newspaper was sold. Continuing in the 1920s and the 1930s, the Nazi Party used the protocols. They were used as propaganda as well as in schools to indoctrinate children. And although at the time and now the protocols have been exposed as fraudulent information and discredited multiple times, the protocols continue to spread anti-Jewish hate today. In the US and Europe, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and Holocaust deniers endorse and circulate the protocols. Thank you for listening.